Hi, I'm Jules.
And I'm Zach, and welcome back to Life After Prison Getting Out, your guide to adapting to life on the outside. In every episode, we discuss the issues that we come up against when we first get released from prison. And in today's episode, it's all about education.
Yes, and today's voice note is from Jordan. He's been studying since leaving prison. So let's hear his voice clip.
Hi, I'm Jordan, and I've done 5.5 years inside. And upon my last year before I got released, I started getting involved in music production. I realised that that's something I wanted to do when I got out. So when I got out, I applied for a course, and I actually got accepted onto the course. I didn't think I would because I got no qualifications. But obviously, I had a portfolio of tracks that I'd produced when I was inside during that last year. So yeah, it was really hard coming out and adjusting back into normal life, into the community, back into society, especially because I hadn't even been back in education. Do you get me? I hadn't studied from I was 15 years old. So, it was a lot to get straight back into uni. And just straight back into education as normal life was really hard for me, do you get me? It was difficult to manage my time, stay organised and stuff like that. But I ended up having to retake my first year, which I'm currently doing now. And I must say, it's going very, very well. And I'm due to pass this year. So anyone that wants to come out and go study, please do it, man. It's easy, you can do it.
Thank you, Jordan. And number one, well done for getting on that course and sounding so positive about it. Absolutely love it. And being open and honest about your struggles as well.
Yeah, smashing it. About to pass his first year. Go on, son.
Love that.
So, as we do in our episodes of Getting Out, we have someone who works within the field of education or can give you that expert advice. And today we have Scott from Shannon Trust. How you doing, Scott? You all right?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah.
Good.
Nice
Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
Please tell us about yourself and the work you do with Shannon Trust.
So, I'm community program manager for Shannon Trust. So, some of your listeners or viewers might be familiar with us. We've worked for a long time in the prison system. We're a literacy-based charity. So, we work with people to improve their reading. It's quite an interesting sort of piece of work that we do because often we're working with people who've not had much, like Jordan actually, not been in formal education for a long time, often have got quite negative experiences of that. And we deliver a reading program in prisons that's sort of peer-based. So we essentially train and support prisoners who can read particularly well or to a certain level to support those who can't. So we're a great stepping stone, I think, into more formal education and for people to take up opportunities that are available to them in the prison system. My job is to try and look at how we expand that work outside of the prison walls, which is obviously very timely in terms of the podcast and in terms of the what we're discussing today, what people do when they leave prison. So it's really good to be here.
So you're the perfect guy for this.
Yeah.
Allegedly, no pressure.
Excellent.
Okay, amazing. So what can somebody in Jordan's position do?
Well, in Jordan's position, I mean, he's obviously started doing. I think that's kind of some of the important thing. I mean, there's a couple of things that stood out to me about Jordan. What Jordan's saying there is one, that he's obviously started studying in prison, and then he's looked at the options when he's got out, hasn't he? And he's applied for a course. There was something interesting I thought he said about, I didn't think that I'd be able to do, which he's obviously proof that he'd kind of thought of something that might be a block, but then wasn't. I think there was something interesting as well about how he talked about it being more difficult perhaps than he'd thought. Because I think sometimes when you're inside, you're thinking of things you're going to do when you come out. And actually the reality is that education outside can feel different and quite challenging. So I think he's really stuck with it. He's looked at his options. He started doing on the inside and thought about what he can do when he comes out. And he's sticking with it. He's not given up. He's decided that there's something he wants to do that he enjoys, and he's progressing through that. So I think it's kind of taking Jordan's example, really. I think if I was advising someone on the inside, it's not to think, oh, there's no point me studying now because I won't be able to do it when I'm out. There's lots you can do, that will continue after. But similarly, when you get out, it's not to think there aren't options available. There are lots. And hopefully we can tell people about a few of those today, which would be good. Okay,
amazing. So for people, to not to not give up, to continue, to think that, you know, there is possibilities even when they come out. And yeah, to believe that, you know, they can do it. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there can be a lot of barriers that, you know, if you take Jordan's example again, you know, he's talking about, I didn't think, you know, that I would be able to do X and Y. And actually a lot of people in Jordan's position might not have even tried then, you know, they might have kind of said, well, actually there's no point, is there? I'm not going to be able to do X. But there are a lot of options available. And I think you can sort of see for him, I mean, he's not found it easy. And I think, you know, it's good advice to say to people, look, you know, it's not a bed of roses coming out of prison and taking up education. It can be challenging and to kind of study and to do things. And there can be lots of competing priorities that people have. I'm sure Jordan has as well. But if you listen to him, what he's saying there at the end, it's been a positive experience, hasn't it?
yeah, he sounds so excited, which is really lovely to hear.
Definitely. But like, just like he's pointed out, you know, it can't be easy for everyone's. And I know you touched on it briefly, but what are the challenges that people may face when they come out of prison and they want to further their education?
Well, I think, I mean, I've been doing a community project myself for a little while, and, you know, been trying to sort of engage people coming out of prison actually in kind of continuing with Shannon Trust or, you know, in the Turning Pages program that we deliver. And I mean, and truthfully, it has been quite challenging for some people because it is a big investment in sort of time and mental energy, and it's challenging. It's difficult to study. It's not necessarily easy. And I think what can kind of complicate that is life in general, isn't it? You come out and you've got to worry about your housing and your benefits and your jobs and your relationships and all your appointments that you have to go to and such things. And so I think education can sometimes fall down a list of priorities. Like I think a lot of people I've met would sometimes come out and say, I'd really love to do, but I've got all of these other things. And I totally understand that. And I think it is hugely difficult. But what I would say to anyone is not necessarily to put it off. I think it is a really good thing to try and focus some investment in your education because it helps people move forward and it can have such a positive impact. All the other things, yeah, do take up time and energy and it can be challenging and difficult, I think. But, you know, I would say to anyone, like, don't put it off. If you want to do something and if you want to study something, you know, the impact's likely to be positive as it's been in Jordan's case. And there are a lot of options for people. It's not just that you have to go to university or you have to study a GCSE or something like that.
So don't kind of put it off, but you can infuse it into everyday life. So you can make it work.
Yeah, because there are flexible options. I mean, you know, what we've tried to do with Shannon Trust is to try and offer, we've tried to be really, really flexible to accommodate, you know, people where we can. So, you know, if they're going for appointments already, to try and meet them where they are, so they're not having to go to 2 different appointments, that sort of thing. Or to train people that they're already working with. So we do work with probation service and drug service to try and train up some of their people to deliver our program. But then if you look at sort of options such as colleges or adult education centres, there are often quite flexible options where you can do stuff online or evenings or weekends. It doesn't have to be necessarily a huge time commitment. I think one of the things is just being able to feel confident enough to look around to see what your options are and where that fits with you, because everybody's different, isn't it? If I'm working nights, I might not be able to study at a certain time in the day, or, you know, et cetera, if I've got childcare responsibilities. So there needs to be flexibility, I think, definitely.
I definitely think you touched on a lot of really good points as well about, you know, it is mentally, it is a struggle mentally, you know, to study and focus on that. And also things like education do tend to go down on the list because, you know, other things seem, you know, they are and they can be, but a lot more important at the time when, you know, sometimes education would be as well because it gives so many other benefits. So yeah, I think that is great. And if you really do want to study something, then do it and go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen firsthand, you know, where I've kind of met people doing the Shannon Trust program who, you know, would have been fairly convinced that they couldn't learn anything. Their experience of school wasn't necessarily positive. It comes with a bit of a label sometimes that, you know, whether people attach that to themselves or other people have given it to them. And they're reluctant to, they think education might just be being in a classroom and having homework and, you know, being told you're not X or Y, you know, you can't do X or you can't do Y. But I think what people realise is as soon as they start doing something, it can increase your confidence hugely.
Oh,
It can
massively.
totally change things.
I agree with that. You know, knowledge is confidence. Confidence is knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
It's power as well.
Yeah.
So what are, you have run through some options. Are there any other options what people can do, or what are the options out there? What are the possible options out there?
I mean, the thing is, there's quite a lot. Like, so just in a very simple sense, if somebody's doing Shannon Trust, say in prison, we would look at their options for doing that coming out. So we give away manuals for free, and, we can train key workers, we can train family members in how they might use that. So somebody, if they're studying Shannon Trust, can come out and do it. There are courses as well, like distance learning courses that people can start in prison that they can continue outside. So there are some things that people need to be aware of when that's the case. So a good example is Open University, where, if you're doing some distance learning with them and you come out, they actually have a team that's sort of dedicated to supporting people to continue through the gate, and have lots of information and resources on their website about that. So that's obviously quite positive. It doesn't mean that, because people get moved around the system, don't they? And they get released without having the date that they...
And if people haven't already started this inside prison, can they start it?
Yeah.
If they're out already? Yeah,
there are also, there'll be different options, but Open University is a good example. They have lots of free courses online, university-based courses, but also other general courses. So they're a good protocol if people want to start. I think if people are out, depending on what you want to study and where you are, which is, it's fair to say that the options are slightly different depending on where you might be in the country. But loosely speaking, there'll be further education colleges where you could study GCSEs, A-level, BTEC. And usually, in a lot of cases, you will have access courses as well. So if people aren't quite at a level, say if they wanted to get a GCSE in English, I had somebody do this recently, actually. If they wanted to get a GCSE in English, but they weren't quite at the level to study at that, what a lot of adult education centres would do, for example, or further education colleges, they can provide some kind of courses and assessments where people can kind of do something that will get them to that level. So there's always something for people to study too. And if you take adult education centres, it doesn't always have to be formal stuff. There's one in every area pretty much. You'll find one locally. Doesn't necessarily have to be studying for GCSE, A-level, quite formal stuff. It can be sort of, quite vocational things. It can be studying for fun. Absolutely anything, really. And actually, in a lot of cases, if people are not working and they're getting employment support, a lot of courses are free as well.
Okay.
Which is also good.
That's a great bonus.
Yeah, because if people think they need to pay course fees and stuff like that, this is a huge barrier. We will, of course, have some prisoners coming out who might want to study university as well. And, a lot of people do. So, that's worth researching as well. Obviously, there are student loans available, but there are places that people can go, prison leavers can go to look at getting scholarships and bits of funding as well. So like Hardman.
Hotline Trust, right?
Hotline Trust.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if things are, people don't have to pay for, is there a certain level, a max level that they can do, or is something free they could go to uni, or it all depends?
It kind of depends.
Yeah,
It kind of depends on what
options are there.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some things to think about. I think if people going into university education or any education generally, that people might be asked about, their convictions or their license conditions and such things. So we need to be upfront with people about that. There might be some certain barriers in the system that prevent them doing certain things. But in general, I mean, that's the importance of scoping the options though, isn't it? And feeling comfortable, I think, to do your homework about that. And you can start that inside, there are people you can ask about that, the obviously tutors and prison education teams, IAG staff, probation officers, etc., etc. I mean, I would encourage anyone inside to do that if they're thinking about doing some education on the out and to start the process quickly. But you can also do the same on the outside. There's a whole manner of things that you can look up. As I say, further education colleges, adult education centres, good places to go to get some initial advice as well on other things that might be there for you.
And I love that you said studying for fun is an option as well, you know?
Yeah.
Why not?
If you enjoy it, you're more
Yeah.
likely to study the course, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we
yeah.
were saying, you know, like a lot of people might be worried about being in a classroom or something like that, which is true. I mean, we do come across people like that, but it doesn't have to be that way. And actually sometimes pushing yourself to step back into something can also be quite good for confidence building as well. Good way to meet people, make positive connections.
So true.
Get enjoying stuff.
Yeah.
You know, these options are there.
I literally try and work out what I want to study, like as in what I want to learn, and then learning about it. And then, you know, it's all education.
It's good to know. I mean, I've been to quite a few prison libraries and, you know, like spoken to people about the sort of books that people take out, and, you know, it's just mind bending, the sort of things that people get interested in and want to be passionate about. And yeah, it doesn't need to be necessarily even studying for a job. It can be just because it's something you enjoy and it's a positive thing to do.
So good for you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Love
100%.
this.
So, Scott, I wanted to ask, if someone's in a position where, you know, they're very early into their educational journey, and they've like basically just started covering the basics, learning to read, learning to write, how can they continue that when they do get released?
Yeah, so there's a few things they can do. I mean, obviously with Shannon Trust, as I mentioned, you know, we're looking at sort of developing some pathways for people. They haven't always existed, I don't think, as well as we would have liked. You know, often people started that process in prison and we haven't always been able to follow them brilliantly. So it's something we've been working on, sort of trying to fix, I think. We've been setting up lots of partnerships with different services. So Shannon Trust is a good port of call, obviously. We're able to provide manuals for free. We're able to kind of help people look at their options. There's another organisation as well called Read Easy that deliver the same programme, Turning Pages. And they have services all around the country in various different places, so worth looking up. It's all totally free, confidential. I mean, there's an important thing about how we do things, which is that it's quite informal and it's one-to-one and it's free and it's very learner-led and sort of focused on people. So I think that's why we're a good introduction for a lot of people to come back into learning. And we've got some long-term aims around making sort of digital resources available for people as well, which is kind of exciting. I think long-term we'll see a lot more opportunity for people to continue. But it's not impossible. There are services out there that can help. So I think if anyone's listening and is wondering that, get in touch with us at Shannon Trust. If you've been enjoying Turning Pages and you want to keep progressing with it, give us a shout and we'll see what we can do for you when you're coming out.
That's
Love
great,
that.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, amazing. Scott, would you please just recap the main points of today? That would be really helpful.
I think there's a few things. Firstly, I'd say education is fundamental. It's, a huge thing for people in terms of moving forward, improving their lives. We see it in Shannon Trust, as many of our partner organisations do that work in education settings, that the difference it can make to people.
And that's not just for people that have been in prison. That's just for everybody.
For everyone. Yeah. But what we do know,
that's amazing. Yeah.
What we do know in Shannon Trust is that we work with a lot of people that have had negative experiences of education, that, like Jordan, they may not have done it for a long time. There may be a lot of barriers to them, physical and mental barriers for them to want to get back into it. But it can make a huge difference in terms of people, as I say, moving forward positively. I think the other thing is as well is to not necessarily have it be a long-term aspiration, but to think about what you can do now. Like, it's easy to put stuff like this off on a very long list of priorities and never get round to it. But as I say, even managing lots and lots of things in day-to-day life, I think prioritizing education or your education as an individual can actually help you manage all of those things. It doesn't necessarily need to be something off in the distance that you're looking to do one day. Actually, trying to focus some time on it if you can. I think is good advice, because if you listen to Jordan, he's speaking very positively. So that can be, that could be you.
And are there different services and options out there for people?
Yeah, so as well as Shannon Trust, if you're, kind of looking to improve reading, there are all sorts of different providers. So as I say, further education colleges, there'll be, there'll be those in each area of the country that'll be local to anyone. There'll be adult education centres as well. Both of those will provide all manner of sort of formal courses, so A-levels, GCSEs, BTECs, but access courses, other vocational things, and just courses for fun. So there's a lot of options out there. Different times of study as well, different ways in which you can do that. So it could be face-to-face, could be online. There's lots of providers offering free courses. So just having a cursory look the other day myself, I noticed that the Open University, for example, offers lots of free online courses that people can access in all sorts of fields as well, which is great. So, finance doesn't need to be a barrier necessarily. And then obviously you've got universities and such things as well if people want to do higher education study as well. So what I would recommend if people are kind of a bit daunted with all the different options, it's worth speaking to potentially a key worker or someone in the job centre, contacting one of the services directly just for a bit of advice. The National Careers Service as well has a hotline and a web chat where people can discuss that with someone who's obviously got some training in that area to kind of advise them. There are other helplines available as well that people can contact, like NACRO, which is for prison leavers, and it's peer-led and where people can get a bit of advice as well. So there's quite a bit. So
no, we
don't be daunted by it.
No, we appreciate that. Yeah. And what you and the organisations and the places that you mentioned, we'll put in our description and our show notes so people can check them out. But before we sign off, is there anything further you want to mention about Shannon Trust?
Well, I think, for a long time, we've spent a long time working in prisons, I would say, and that experience has been super, super positive. We don't get to as many people as we would like to, and we want to change that. But I think ultimately we are ambitious and we want to get out there and support people earlier. People shouldn't have to go to prison to get some one-to-one support around reading. Now, it's not like they've specifically got sent to prison to do that, but actually it's been one of the few places where people have been able to do that, and we're committed to trying to change it, because I think literacy is a huge barrier to people managing day-to-day life. It can cause all sorts of issues in terms of people finding employment and doing what they want to do. And we don't want that to be a barrier anymore. So we want everybody to have that opportunity that people are getting in prison. So anything that we can do to support people is what we're about, and we're optimistic that we're going to achieve it. So
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything that you've heard today in this episode that has encouraged you to want to pick up education again or to get more information about your education, please let us know and get in touch with us by hitting us up on socials. You can do that by DMing us on Instagram and Twitter at AfterPrisonPod. Or if you prefer to send an email, you can email us at podcasts@prison.radio. But if you prefer to write, you can write us a letter to Life After Prison, National Prison Radio, HMP Brixton, London, SW2 5XF.
Yes, and please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. It really, really, really helps more people see the podcast, listen to the podcast, and we're trying to reach as many people as we can. So a massive thank you to Scott for joining us today.
Thanks, Scott.
And to Jordan for his voice clip.
Yeah, well done for like passing your first year as well.
Yeah, that was wicked. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. So we will see you next time.
Take care, guys.